Hey everybody, Jack Conte here, CEO and co-founder of Patreon. I wanted to make you a video to give you a heads up about a change happening on Patreon. We're being mandated by law to start charging sales tax on patron pledges. We've talked to a few dozen creators so far. I've had a few calls myself, walking creators through the changes that are happening and why and the context for the sales tax laws, and then also what we're doing about it. None of this is happening until July 1st. So wanted to give you a sense of when this is coming, what we're doing about it, and start talking about it with creators, and share best practices for how to go through this rollout. So that's what this video is about. We already charge VAT in Europe, and we've been doing that for I don't know, 4.5 or 5 years, since 2015. So patrons in the EU are not going to see any changes as we're rolling this out because we've already been collecting and remitting VAT on their behalf for a long time. But there are new tax laws that have passed in the last few years in many other countries and in the United States, and those laws are being enforced. And the way that they were, I think the original spirit of the laws was to make sure that the Amazons and the eBays were in check, but the way that they are written and the way that they're being interpreted and enforced, it's applying to marketplace style companies like Patreon. And so we're having to comply with the law and make sure that we collect sales tax from patrons when they pledge to a creator and when they join a membership. Tax is going to be primarily based on the patron's location. So the sales tax rate and sales tax law is based on the patron's location, not the creator's location. What that means is this will affect not all patrons, because not all patrons are in regions that have that mandate sales tax, but it will likely affect all creators, because all creators probably have at least some patrons in taxable regions, and so we're estimating it's going to be around 30% of patrons in aggregate, across the board, around 30% of patrons. That doesn't mean that for you as a specific creator, 30% of your patron base will be charged sales tax. That's not what that means, because you might have most of your patron base in an exempt region, in which case most of your patrons won't have to pay sales tax. You might have a large portion of your patron base in a taxable region, in which case a large portion of your patron base will have to pay sales tax. But in aggregate, across all of Patreon, it'll be somewhere around 30%. And then the third thing is just to open up a line of communication. I'm going to be answering questions down below in the comments. It's going to be a little bit long and a little bit dry because it's sales tax. So if you don't want to watch a super long video about it, feel free to click this link here. There'll be a link down below for just kind of a one-pager. But if you want to lean in and spend the extra time and learn about the details and learn about what we're doing, then this is the video for you. And sorry if I keep looking off screen. I have like my bullet points here because there's so much information to communicate, and I just want to make sure I get through it all. So that's what I'm looking at. That's over here. Other companies are having to do this too. So YouTube, Facebook, Twitch have all rolled this out, and the way we want to roll it out, I hope, is a lot better than that. Of course, I'm biased, but we're going to offer creators quite a bit of flexibility and specificity, because we know our creators care about this. And yeah, especially in these conversations that I've been having with creators, it's very clear a lot of these creators want to actually lean way in and go take the time to go through the settings and make changes. I'll be hosting a couple AMAs with a bunch of folks from the Patreon team, finance and tax and other experts in the field. So I'll put links to them in the description below. I've mentioned that we're building tools. Essentially what this is for the creators that want to lean in, we're building a way for a creator to ensure that their patrons are only paying the amount of sales tax that they should be paying and not a penny more. And the reason we've built that as a tool is Patreon's going to do some automation and based on keywords and things like that to figure out what the right sales tax is. But we know that creators want more control than that. And if you want to override those settings and do it your own way and make sure that your patrons are paying just the amount that they should be paying, you can do that. And so I want to get into the kind of the flexibility of this solution that we've designed and what that is. There's another input into sales tax, which is the types of benefits that you're offering your patrons in your tiers. And here's what I mean by that. Not all benefits are taxable in all states. So in some states, it's just physical goods. Like if you have a T-shirt that's a part of your membership, that might be taxable. But in other states, it's that and digital content and gated community experiences and recognition or a shout out or something like that. So depending on what benefits you have in your tiers, it might affect the amount of sales tax that your patrons have to pay. Now that's a really important distinction because it affects the solution that we built and the tool that we built to help creators manage the amount of sales tax that their patrons will have to pay. So basically what Patreon needs to do is not only determine the patron location, which of course we can do that, but also figure out the categories of benefits that creators are offering. And so we've built some logic to basically look for keywords to determine what the benefits are that the creator is offering and then apply local sales tax law to those results based on the patron's location. And that's the kind of automatic solution. So basically, you could stop watching this video and that will just happen and you won't have to do anything if you don't want to. But we know that some creators are going to want to lean in and are going to want to put in more work than that to minimize the change here. And so we've offered that, and that's what I'm going to get into now. So what we've essentially built, and we're still we're in the final stages of kind of figuring out what the tool is. So I'm not going to do a screen share of the tool right now. But here's the basic idea. It allows you to go in and say, okay, yes, I'm offering digital content here, but actually the digital content, even though the tier is $10, the digital content isn't really what patrons are paying for. Digital content is only, say, $1 of that pledge, and or $4 or $5 of that pledge, and the rest of it is because the patrons want to support me or something like that. Now, if that's the case, if the patrons want to support you and that's a primary motivation for your membership, that's not taxable. And so we've built that tool that allows you to basically weigh how much of my membership is kind of because my patrons just want to be a part of this and they want to vote with their dollars and they want to support, versus how much of it is for this exclusive content or exclusive experience that I'm offering. That's essentially what the tool is, and it allows creators to custom configure their tiers to basically say okay, the main motivation is this. For this tier, the main motivation is this. The weighting is actually 90-10 or 50-50 or whatever it is. And that will make sure that your patrons aren't paying more sales tax than they're mandated to pay by law. So that's essentially the tool that we've built. Now, when we actually roll this out, of course, we're going to have articles and education that explain how you should treat these settings and recommended best practices. So for creators who do want to lean in and use this tool and make those tweaks, there's going to be plenty of information about how to do that. And again, if you have more questions about it, I'll be answering questions in the comment section below. Feel free to just leave me a comment and we'll get into it. This is a lesson Patreon has learned over the years. Some creators say, Patreon, I don't want to have to communicate any of this to my patrons. Communicate it for us. I don't want to talk to my patrons about sales tax. You do it. But then other creators say, no, Patreon, don't message my patrons. I want to tell my patrons about this. I don't want you to message my patrons about this. Or at least I want to tell my patrons first before they get a random email from Patreon. So here's what we're doing. On June 1st, we're going to send out an email to patrons who will be affected based on their location. but we wanted to give you a heads up for a month ahead of time so that you can communicate with patrons first and let them know what's happening. We have a FAQ, like a one-pager. We're also going to send out bullets to creators in case you do want to talk to your patrons about this before we message them. Of the creators that at least I talked to, and I know that our team has talked with so far, most of them are saying, hey, actually, Patreon, I want to tell my patrons first before you email them. So yeah, I think that's probably best. Not probably, I really think that's best. And if you're watching this and you do want to tell your patrons first, I highly recommend that you do that. I think that's mostly everything. I've covered the tool, I've covered the communication, I've covered the kind of the tax law and what the changes are that are upcoming and the kind of context for all that. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to just leave me a comment in the comment section below. I'll be checking comments over the next couple weeks, talking to people. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. And come to an AMA if you have more questions. You want to talk to us live. We'll put those links in the doobly-doo, as they say, below the video.